Chapter 10. A Desperate Plea. G. By the time the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, it was evident that the stable boy was skilled at his craft. Their horses were refreshed, well-fed, and ready for the journey ahead. Once saddled and packed, Haldor and Ghalen mounted their horses, casting a lingering look back at the inn where the others still slept.
Not hiding today, are we?
Haldor asked, staring at him intently. Ghalen adjusted his cloak to conceal the royal emblem on his freshly changed shirt.
I refuse to give her the satisfaction of seeing me ride in like a beggar.
He scoffed, urging his mount forward. They rode on in silence. Ghalen knew this would not be a pleasant visit. He glanced at Haldor, who seemed lost in thought as the horses trudged along.
He's trying to figure out what miraculous plan I've devised,
Ghalen thought with a sigh. He'd come up with some desperate plans during the war, but this one was the most reckless yet appealing to the common sense of rebels. Madness. Still, he would do whatever it took.
Remember, the crossbearer must not intervene in the discussion, no matter what happens.
Haldor shot him a look.
I know the laws, Ghalen. Just focus on your part. Get those soldiers back to Hyphara.
By the time they neared the city, Ghalen found himself wondering, not for the first time, how magnificent the city would be had they won the war. It had been the capital of the South when the land was torn. And it had seemed that some of the Southerners would never forget their defeat. Quarry Mill was located closer to rich obsidian mines in Hyphara. Yet, as it was not the main capital, the greatest craftsmen and merchants always preferred to travel to Hyphara for trade.
There she is,
Haldor muttered as the walls of Quarry Mill revealed itself at the edge of the gate. The city, located at the foot of the mountain, was grand as far as cities went. As they got closer, Ghalen could see the riders dispatched from the city gates.
Seems they are not too keen on visitors,
Haldor said. Ghalen rummaged in his bags and handed a folded cloth to Haldor.
Here, put it on your spear and hold it high. They will have to accept us.
As the riders approached, the two men held their banners high, one with the colors of Arania and their emblem of 3 mountain peaks, and the other flag of white with a silver cross in the middle. One rider shouted, "I am Captain Gerard, in charge of protecting the gate. Who are you? Who comes to negotiate for Arania under mountain law?" Haldor cleared his throat, replying in a clear, majestic tone.
You stand before Ghalen Whitmore, High King of the United Lands of the Isle, and your liege lord.
The horsemen looked startled at the announcement. They could likely see, clear as day, that it was indeed the king. Yet they did not salute him, a clear act of insubordination, if not outright treason. My orders are to let nobody enter the city. The captain paused for a moment, his horse stepping nervously. But no man under the shade of a mountain may decline that flag, he said, looking at the silver cross Haldor was flying, then back to the city. I will escort you and inform the High Lady of your request. The two rode on towards the city with their escort. D. Dorian had been hurriedly summoned from his quarters, grumbling as he headed down the hall.
Stones break me. What could be so important this early?
The servant who had woken him asked that he wear his full uniform. Dorian yawned as the servant led him down the corridor of the wooden mansion. Arriving at the former royal hall, now the hall of the High Lady, he noticed the other 3 bannered generals. They looked as confused and tired as he felt.
Does anyone know the meaning of this?
He asked. The others shook their head. No clue. General Harkeem replied, stifling a yawn when a servant announced the High Lady's emergence around a corner. The general stood at attention. At ease, my lords, she said, walking past them into the room. They all seated themselves on a raised stage, a platform where the lady of the city and her substitute would meet with her people and hear requests. The stage's elevation was a clear reminder to any low-born of their place. The general's eyes shifted first between each other, and then to Olivia.
High Lady,
Dorian began.
May I ask why you have summoned us at this hour?
Her face had a stern look, and her chin was held high, as always. She shot him an annoyed glance. It seems the boy king himself has decided to pay us a visit, flying the Silver Cross, no less. Each general around the table was visibly shaken, eyes widened. Ghalen came himself? And with only one man? Harkeem asked. It would appear so. He should be here any minute now, she said, tapping her finger impatiently on the table. All we have worked for has led to this moment. You put your trust in me and Cedric, and I bid you do the same now, my lords. Let me do the talking, and I will restore power to the south and make sure we can win this war at the same time.
Certainly, my lady,
Dorian replied, trying to keep his annoyance out of his tone. The more time he had spent here, the more he had seen her true colors.
That bloody woman would look down on the angels of Lumar if she got the chance.
He clenched his fist under the table. The doors to the chambers opened, and in strode the High King of the Isle, his cross-bearer closely behind him, took place in the corner, holding the white banner so all could see, just as ceremony dictated. Dorian could scarcely believe it. Ghalen was not announced, which irked him somewhat. They might be plotting to remove the crown from the boy, but perhaps they could show the station a smudge of respect before they tore it from him. Olivia was the first to speak.
You come to us without an army, boy,
she said, her voice tinged with disrespect.
I assume you must have some powerful offering if you think we would yield without a fight.
Ghalen raised an eyebrow.
You have not made any official declaration of rebellion, but I suppose your last sentence will do just fine.
To Dorian's dismay, the boy smiled.
Damn it, boy. If you wish to come to an agreement with her, that is not a good way to start.
Olivia hissed at the king's nonchalant tone.
Enough of your ignorance. Your council would have informed you of what my banners of leaving Hyphara meant. What terms have you come to propose? Present them or leave.
Her face was stone. The king sighed.
Yes, Olivia. I knew you were throwing a rebellion, threatening civil war as our people face destruction. Still, I stand here before you, having not called you a traitor, without bringing in my army, because my one and only concern is the survival and welfare of our people. And forcing them to fight amongst themselves, family against family, friend against friend, would be a tragedy I could not bear. So I humbly ask you, High Lady Olivia Silverbrook of Quarry Mill, under what terms would you abort this madness and help Urania defend our people?
Olivia gave a small, dismissive laugh.
There are no terms short of signing over sovereignty to the south and naming me Queen of the Isle, as it always should have been.
She locked eyes with him, her gaze unwavering. Dorian's heart pounded.
Name you queen? Has she gone mad?
This was not what they had agreed upon. Of course, she would go for an impossible demand. Their plan was already in motion. Cedric would have control of the capital by now, and Olivia was meant to be a co-ruler when she entered the city. If Ghalen was desperate and foolish enough to agree, she might claim the throne for herself. If he refused, she would lose nothing. And Dorian? He had cast his lot with this woman. The lives of his men now depended on the outcome of this gamble, so he held his tongue. The king sighed and slumped down on a chair beside him.
More delegates to the south, self-governance even. These would be demanding terms, but something we could discuss. But this?
He lifted a shaking hand and placed on his knee, forcing it to stop.
That tremble must be from a bad cut, so he does not shy away from battle.
Dorian mulled over in his head. He looked at Olivia, who smiled, no doubt mistaking the trembling for fear. Dorian had seen countless battles, but none as precarious as the one unfolding here, where words were weapons, and the stakes were far greater than any battlefield. Olivia's voice is a blade, sharp and unrelenting.
You started this game by showing me your losing hand. Besides, that crown was never supposed to be yours in the first place. Your ruthless grandmother might have won it fair, but you could never live up to that legacy.
The king remained seated, his hands stippled as he watched her with an unnerving calm. Dorian thought he recognized a tactic, a predator biding its time before the strike. When Ghalen rose, his voice cut through the chamber like a crack of a whip.
You speak of legacy as though it were earned through cunning alone,
Ghalen said, his tone measured, his gaze bore into Olivia, unflinching.
But tell me, Olivia, what legacy do you leave here today? One of greed, betrayal, or perhaps cowardice? Turning your back on your people during their hour of greatest need?
Dorian's eyes flicked to Olivia. waiting for her response, but she remained silent. The faintest flicker of irritation crossed her face before she masked it behind her usual icy composure. Ghalen, undeterred, turned his focus to the assembled generals. Dorian, unlike the others, did not avert his eyes.
And you,
Ghalen continued, his voice rising.
men of steel and duty who claim to stand for honor and protection of this realm, do you truly swear your swords to someone so blinded by her ambition? Someone willing to split a kingdom in two during a time when unity is our only hope to survive?
Dorian stiffened as the other generals shifted, their polished boots scuffing against the wooden floor. Beside him, General Harkim cast a wary glance at Olivia, as if seeking reassurance. Olivia stood motionless, her smirk frozen, her fingers gripping the edge of the table just a fraction too tightly. Ghalen pressed on.
Can you live with yourselves, knowing that your loyalty lies not with the people you swore to protect, but with a woman who would bleed this land dry for the weight of a crown she does not deserve? Look around you. Our borders crumble, our enemies close in, and you stand idle, bartering lives for titles.
Dorian's jaw tightened. The king turned back to Olivia, his tone colder now.
You want the crown? Do you want me to kneel? Prove you deserve it. Take the field at Hyphara. Fight for this kingdom, not for me, but for the people that look to you for protection. Then, and only then, can we discuss autonomy for the South. But if you insist on playing this Game of Thrones while our land burns, you'll find me a far more dangerous opponent than you imagined.
Dorian couldn't help but admire Galen's nerve. He wasn't just issuing a challenge. He was throwing the gauntlet at her feet, daring her to rise to it. Olivia let out a chuckle, the sound low and venomous. She rose and took a deliberate step toward Harkim, resting a hand on his shoulder as she spoke. "That would have been a good play, boy," she said, her voice dripping with mockery. "Your only misstep is thinking that loyalty lies solely with me." Her words hit their mark. Dorian caught the fleeting doubt in Galen's eyes, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Olivia turned her gaze back to him, the smirk returning in full force.
Choose your next move carefully, Olivia,
Ghalen said, his voice deadly quiet.
History will not remember those who sought to claim power in the shadows. It will remember those who stood in the light and fought for what mattered.
History will be written by the victors,
she said with a venomous smile.
I believe the negotiations are over. Guards, arrest him.
The guards at the door moved, but Galen's crossbearer was between them in an instant, battle stance ready. Dorian toppled over his chair when he rose.
Olivia, you would break mountain law and arrest him under the Silver Cross?
He clutched the hilt of his sword until his knuckles turned white.
You would doom us all, woman. Will you stand for this?
He glanced at the other generals, but they remained frozen in inaction. Dorian drew his blade.
I will escort the king to safety, or you will have to kill me and all of my men to capture him. I doubt your rebellion will be as intimidating without my army.
Olivia sighed and waved her hand dismissively.
Fine. Take him away.
G. Ghalen noticed a scent of pine was even stronger in the hallway as Dorian led them out of the mansion.
Ghalen, listen to me. If you return to Hyphara now, there will be blood. Your men will fight for you, but the city is already lost. Cedric rules from the council chamber, and the streets are filled with those who would rather see you dead than back on the throne.
Ghalen stopped, nausea twisting in his stomach.
Impossible. Cedric would never.
Your cousin made his choice.
Dorian cut in.
You forced his hand. Maybe he would have let you remain as king if you had shown something. Anything to hold on to. But you didn't. So he took the throne himself.
Ghalen turned to him.
And you? Do you serve him now?
Dorian exhaled, his expression unreadable.
I serve Arania. And right now, that means standing behind the man who can hold it together. That is not you.
Ghalen clenched his fists, his gaze flickering toward the city beyond the window.
You don't have to die for this.
Dorian continued, lowering his voice.
Stay away. Let things settle. If you try to fight this now, they won't let you live. But if you wait, if you give it time, there may still be a place for you. Cedric isn't cruel. Once his rule is solidified, perhaps there will be room for you at court. Maybe even a seat on the council.
Ghalen let out a slow breath, his jaw tight.
You expect me to sit idly by while you dismantle my rule?
Dorian shook his head.
I expect you to stay alive. Do that, and you may yet have a future.
Ghalen turned to gaze out of a nearby window, watching as sunlight painted the city streets below.
Very well, then. I do not like this, but it seems I have little choice. General Dorian, I will stay away.
They were escorted on horseback by Dorian and some 20 of his men. The city of Quarry Mill, with its shuttered windows and suspicious stares, soon faded into the distance. For a time, Ghalen rode in silence, the rhythm of hooves against the dirt road leaving him too much space for his thoughts. Relief that he was free gnawed against the heavy failure settling in his chest. He had come with hopes of peace, to sway the Banner Generals to his cause, but had left with nothing to show for it but Dorian's intervention. He glanced sideways at the man who had averted a complete disaster. In the city hall, Ghalen had barely seen Dorian as anything more than a means to an end. Now, he took in the worn set of his savior's face. Dorian sat straight in the saddle, his broad shoulders square beneath a simple weather-stained cloak. His hair, once a rich brown as Ghalen faintly remembered from their diplomatic travels in his youth, was now streaked with gray at the temples. His strong weathered features, hooked nose, firm jaw, and a thick, well-tended mustache gave him the look of a man who had fought many battles and survived them all. There was no pretense in him, no unnecessary words. He looked every part of the dependable man Galen's father had once described him as, a quiet, commanding presence that made Ghalen wonder how such a man had ended up among rebels at all. After a few miles, they parted ways. Some time later, Haldor cleared his throat.
That did not go according to plan,
he said, casting Ghalen a sidelong glance.
That is one way to describe a boulder as a pebble,
Ghalen replied with a heavy sigh.
So we are handing the city over to Cedric?
Haldor pressed.
We had to return the banners to defend the city,
Ghalen said.
This might have been the worst way to do so, but they will be there for the battle.
And your grandmother's legacy?
Ghalen grimaced.
Her legacy? Yes, there is peace on the Isle because of her. But it came at a great cost. Bloodshed stained every victory. Not everyone sees her as a savior. Olivia made that abundantly clear.
He looked up at the sky, his voice weighted with frustration.
If we win this war, Haldor, I don't know what to do. My grandmother dreamed of spreading Lumar's light and the Isle's peace across the world, to free slaves and end tyranny beyond the sea. My father thought her dreams were madness, that they consumed her with a lust for conquest. So tell me, friend, what legacy should I protect?
Haldor's expression didn't change, but he replied calmly.
I don't like complicating things. It is not my place to dictate your path. My duty is to follow your commands and keep you safe. I trust you to fulfill yours.
Ghalen shook his head with a sigh.
A great help as always, old friend.